Now, Flynn leads off with a really sobering thought. He says, a war on our own soil is a very real possibility. Should this occur, what will we have done to prevent the war? It's a good question. So he plays with that idea for a minute, and then he references the Budapest Agreement. This was an agreement that came into effect in 1994. It was ultimately signed in 1994. The George H.W. Bush administration had pushed it through. Essentially what had happened is the Soviet Union had collapsed. Ukraine was now no longer part of the Soviet Union. It was its own nation, and the Soviets had put a massive stockpile of nuclear weapons in the Ukraine. In fact, they had, by today's standards, they would have the third largest cache of nuclear weapons in the world. And I was looking for information on how significant that stockpile would be. So they had, the ICBMs they had and the numbers they had explosive yields of 4 to 550 kilotons each. That's 27 to 37 times the size of the bomb that devastated Hiroshima. They had 1,900 of these strategic nuclear warheads. That's more than 6 times the number of nuclear warheads China possessed as of 2019. And those warheads could destroy every U.S. city with a population of more than 50,000 people 3 times over. And Ukraine still could have had warheads left to spare. Clearly, it was a problem having this massive cache of warheads in a country that was just freshly spun off from the Soviet Union and was perhaps not particularly stable. So essentially what the Budapest Agreement says is that neither the United States nor Russia nor Great Britain will take aggressive military action toward Ukraine. And the reason we set it up like that is Ukraine essentially said, look, for us to get rid of there's a great security guarantee that goes with nuclear missiles, with nuclear weapons in general. If we give these up, we don't have any security assurances, so you're going to have to give us security assurances, Russia, the United States, and Great Britain. Will you do that? And they agreed. Now, however, and actually before now, Russia has been in violation of the Budapest Agreement. You can argue about when it started. It certainly started in full, at least, when Russia annexed Crimea from the Ukraine back 8 years ago. But now they are flagrantly in violation of it. And the Budapest Agreement not only says that we will not, that the signatory parties will not attack Ukraine, it also strongly imply that the signatories will come to Ukraine's aid if Ukraine is attacked. So we may be in violation of it. Russia is in gross violation of it. But Flynn thinks that pulling the Budapest Agreement back out would actually be very helpful. Without doing that, he says, the real advent of a nuclear standoff, or worse, a nuclear exchange, is on the horizon. So let's just break this down little bit by little bit. Grant, we'll go to you. Putin has slowed down a little bit in Ukraine. They've got about a 20-mile long, 40-kilometer long set of supplies. Gosh, I can't think of the term for it. Reinforcement supply line convoy that is more or less stuck. I think they're about 15 miles north of Kiev. He thought that he would have Ukraine within a matter of a few days. That's not happened. The Ukrainians are ticked off. He thought the Ukrainians would welcome him. So now he's got to figure out what to do. Does he try to crush Ukrainian opposition? Does he slink back with his tail between his legs? I don't think he does that. So to crush him, does he start thinking about nuclear options?
I think he could. I feel like we talked about this on the show previously. I think that if he were to do that, there would more than likely be consequences from other countries, even if it wasn't the United States. I feel like countries in Europe would have to respond if they saw a show of force like that. I feel like somebody over there would do something. Maybe not, because maybe they don't want to get in their own nuclear war with Russia. But my inclination is that they would probably intervene if Russia were to start using nuclear weapons. I feel like Putin knows that that's a risk if he's going to start using nuclear force against Ukraine, and that's probably what has kept him sort of at bay as far as nuclear weapons go.
Yeah.
Because I think that he really only wants to do what he knows that he's not going to be fought back for. I think he knew that Joe Biden was a weak president and that he wasn't going to really do anything when he went into Ukraine other than sanctions, which, Putin and Russia don't really care about. So I think that he calculated that he could go into Ukraine and take it, which he hasn't been able to do yet, but he also thought, I'm not going to get a lot of opposition from the United States as far as they're not going to send troops over here, and he was right about that. So I think he knows the possibility of sending troops is greatly increased if he were to use nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So I think that fact probably makes me think he's less likely to do it, but it's definitely not impossible.
Yeah, it would certainly unite all of the NATO countries against him. We can't have a nuclear exchange, just channel George W. Bush, a nuclear. We can't have a nuclear exchange on European soil. It can't happen if at all avoidable. So then what comes is a question of what kind of person Putin himself is. Now, we were talking about this in the newsroom today. There's a story about Putin that we want to share with you. I thought most people knew this story. But when we brought it up in the newsroom today, there was only one other person who had heard the story. Flynn brought this up in his op-ed. Again, you can find that at westernjournal.com, his latest op-ed. But it's a story about Robert Kraft. He's the owner of the New England Patriots, and Kraft was visiting, I think it was St. Petersburg in 2005. He met Putin there. The short version of the story is Kraft was wearing his giant, I don't know if we have a picture or not. We might have. We were talking about it ahead of time. A giant Super Bowl ring. And Putin saw it and commented on it. And Kraft, like the nice guy he is, he pulled off his ring. He gave it to Putin to look at. Putin looked at it. It's a giant ring. Putin said, "Man, you could really kill somebody with this." Then Putin put it in his pocket, turned around, and walked out of the room with three KGB goons following him.
Oh my gosh.
So this reinforces the old, or it brings back up the old maxim when dealing with Soviets. It's what's mine. If you're a Soviet, your take on things is what's mine is mine. What's yours is negotiable.
Yeah.